What's up guys, you got Crave here, and it's really been fun playing Assassin's Creed Origins. While it is an AC game through and through, the additional elements put in and the changes really have me hooked. However, I did notice some things that were not so, obvious from the start. So while it is a bit late, this upload, in case you're new to the game or having trouble in some parts, here are some quick info you might find useful. In many other games, we're used to calling our mounts and turning in their direction in order to use them. This can be tricky if you're in the middle of combat or some other activity. Now in AC Origins, your mount has this behavior where it runs alongside you if you're moving. So just simply press the button that calls your mount, and the button will really depend on the platform you're using or if you remapped your buttons. And provided there is enough space towards Bayek's left or right, you can then press the mount button and keep your momentum. There might be a small slowdown, but the momentum is still there. So this makes running away from a horde of mobs or Phylakes or Phylax, I don't know how you pronounce them, much easier. That's assuming they don't shoot you down. In the game, you'll notice those little rectangular shapes on your map, and it shows you images when you hover above them. Assassin's Creed has its own photo mode, which functions much like NVIDIA's Ansel. This allows you to take a picture of what's happening in the game, in the middle of anything, and allows you some minimal editing options. Now, while I did say it was much like NVIDIA's Ansel, like I said, it isn't that robust, but it is good enough. Now, if you're on a PC, just make sure to check your Documents folder to see your stored screenshots. Gear upgrades, as with most RPGs, are really useful in Origins. This comes in the form of upgrading items you can't replace, like your gloves, and the gear that you can replace, like your bow. Always find a time to upgrade and give priority to your playstyle. If you like ranged play like me, make sure to upgrade your quiver and range damage. For the items you can replace, you can upgrade the gear you like, especially if they have some really nice traits or if they're worthy legendary gear. Keep in mind that better weapons or gear have higher stat and trait budgets, so it's one of those things you might want to consider when you upgrade your gear. Your hidden blade damage is part of the upgrade process, but I feel it deserves a section on its own. Increasing your hidden blade damage makes sure your assassination attempts don't fail. If your assassination attempts do fail, the targets still take damage, but it will bring you into combat. It will of course fail outright if the targets are too high level, or basically you're up against the level appropriate targets like Phylax or Phylakes, I don't know how you pronounce them again. Now, most targets can be one-shot provided you've been taking care of your trusty blade. It can be a bit confusing to keep track of your mats, so make sure to use the pin feature. This helps you to remember which mats are needed for your gear upgrades. You can keep track of items that are higher on your priority list for upgrades. Now, the reason why I'm pointing this out is that you don't want to accidentally spend a raw material like bronze or some piece of wood that you probably would have intended for a different piece of gear. In most games, I do like the floating combat text. Seeing the big damage numbers really gives a very satisfying feeling. However, it may not apply to everyone, so don't forget that there is a menu option to turn off the flying text if you're not a fan of it. Mine, ever since I started the game, was actually turned off, mainly because the damage numbers were so small. So eventually, maybe in the later part of the game, when the damage numbers are much higher, I'll probably turn it back on. Some of the best gear from my experience in the game so far comes from the scrolls and the temples and the daily quest offered by the wandering kid merchant, I think his name is Reda. The rewards for either activity so far appears to scale to your level. So if you've been walking around with not so good gear, maybe you could do the scroll quests, but I would suggest just simply doing the daily quests as you log in, and you might end up with some items that have basically some really nice stats. Now, the scroll quests, I would suggest, and it's really up to you, you can maybe keep them in your bags for a bit of time until you think you're pretty much getting closer to the end game where the really stronger gear will come in useful. And that's it, some information for Assassin's Creed Origins. Now, of course, there are other useful information, but I didn't include them in this video. If you do like to share them, just add them in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.